Why use something black and white for something like nature, something so rich in color? The lush greens of the forest, the warm glow of evening light, and the iridescent feathers of a sunbird. That's what makes wildlife photography so magical, right? So why take all of that away? Because black and white can do something color can't. And I'll get to that in a second. But first, to really understand why black and white works, we need to talk about color itself. When we look at a photo, color is one of the first things that hits us. Every image, no matter how simple, is made up of three main elements of color: hue, saturation, and luminance. Hue is simply the color itself: red, blue, green, yellow. Saturation is how intense that color is. Think of the difference between dull grass and neon green. And luminance is how bright or dark that color appears. And together they form what we call the color palette of an image. But colors are not the whole story. Photographs also have composition, texture, shape, light, and form. And these are what define the structure of the image. They give it bones, not just skin. Now, here's something that most people don't think about: how we actually view a photo. When someone looks at your image, their eyes aren't just wandering randomly. They are subconsciously drawn to certain things, and color plays a massive role in that. Bright colors, complementary colors, or certain colors catch our attention first. It's the reason why in color theory, combinations like complementary or triadic palettes feel harmonious. Our brains like that kind of balance. Contrast also matters. Areas with more difference between light and dark naturally attract the eye. And brightness does as well. Our eyes always go to the brightest parts first. Of course, saturation as well. The more vivid something is, the more it pops. So, when you think about it, color can be both a tool and a distraction. It can guide the viewer beautifully or completely hijack their attention. Now, black and white removes hue and saturation entirely. You're left only with luminance, only with light and shadow. And that's the key. When color disappears, so do the distractions. Suddenly, what's left in your frame is form, shape, texture, and composition. And if that's what you want your viewers to focus on, not the plumage, not the greenery, but the structure of the moment, black and white is perfect. It also taps into something deeper in the human mind. We see the world in color, but when that's taken away, our brains start filling in the blanks. Viewers begin to imagine the color. They don't just look at the image, they interpret it. A color photo is observation, while a black and white photo is imagination. There are also times when color actually works against you. Think about photographing a leopard in long grass. The tones are similar, warm yellows and browns all just blending together, and the background competes with your subject. Or imagine some kind of cluttered jungle, red berries and green leaves and brown branches all shouting for attention. In those cases, color adds noise, but when you strip it away, the image simplifies. Now your subject can stand out not through hue, but through contrast, brightness, and composition. Black and white can also save harsh or flat light. Midday sunlight often kills color, it washes everything out. But in black and white, that same harshness can look dramatic. A zebra under strong light looks blown out in color. But in monochrome, the black and white stripes come alive. You're no longer fighting bad light. You're using it to create these bold tones. Now, this, I think, is where black and white really shines, in showing character. Wildlife is full of texture: scaly skin, wrinkled hides, wet feathers, or fur catching the backlight, and black and white exaggerates these textures beautifully. Take elephants. Their skin is like a topographical map of experience. Every crease, every shadow tells a story of survival and age. Or, for instance, primates. The roughness of their hands, the depth in their eyes, and the lines that hint at emotion. These are things that can get lost in color, but in monochrome, they're front and center. So I guess you could say that color shows appearance, black and white shows character, right? It strips the animal down to its essence, what it feels like, not just what it looks like. Black and white also amplifies mood. A misty morning might look dull in color, flat, gray, lifeless, but in black and white it becomes cinematic, mysterious. A thunderstorm over the plains. In color, it's just gloomy light. In black and white, it's drama, it's tension, it's the calm before the chaos. Monochrome lets you emphasize emotion over realism. It's fantastic for storytelling moments. A lioness guarding her cubs, or a solitary bird in the rain, or a buffalo standing in dust. When you make these moments black and white, I feel as if you're saying, this isn't just a record of what happened. This is how I felt. But of course, black and white doesn't work for every image. It lives and dies by one thing: light. Because when you take away color, light becomes everything. How it falls, what it touches, and what it hides. That is your new palette. Side light and backlight are perfect. They sculpt shape and texture, and flat light can work as well, but only if the subject has strong tonal differences, like, say, dark fur against a bright sky. So when you're shooting, start training your eye to see in tones instead of colors. Ask yourself, if I remove color from this scene, will it still work? Will the subject still stand out? Will the light still tell the story? One tip that helps: switch your camera's picture profile to monochrome when shooting RAW. The RAW file still keeps a color, but your viewfinder shows you a black and white preview. It's a great way to train your eye to see in contrast, light, and form. Now, let's be honest, black and white isn't like a magic fix. If the story is about color, like a kingfisher's plumage or a coral snake's pattern, then removing color kills the point. If lighting is too flat, or your subject blends in tonally with the background, you'll just end up with a muddy photo, right? Black and white should never be used to rescue an image. It's not a filter. It's a choice, a deliberate decision to focus on form, texture, and emotion over color. And if your first thought is, maybe this image would look better in black and white, it probably will not. But if your first thought is, this moment feels timeless, then perhaps you're on to something. And that's one of black and white's biggest strengths. It feels timeless. It strips away the timestamp of technology. You can't tell if a black and white wildlife photo was taken in 1965 or 2025. That gives it a sense of permanence, and that fits perfectly with nature, because nature itself is timeless. The same elephants, the same eagles, the same struggles for life and death, they've existed long before we ever picked up a camera. When you shoot them in black and white, you're not just capturing their color, you're capturing their essence. It becomes more than a photo, it becomes a tribute. There's also something freeing about editing in black and white. You're no longer bound by color accuracy. No one's going to tell you, that fur wasn't that brown. You can play, deepen shadows for drama, brighten highlights for contrast, add a subtle grain to give it a filmic feel. Dodging and burning become your paintbrushes. You're sculpting light around your subject instead of tweaking these white balance and color sliders. Editing becomes less technical and more emotional. So, when does black and white work for wildlife photography? For me, it's when color distracts from your story. When texture and light carry emotion. When you want your photo to feel timeless, not trendy. Black and white isn't about removing something, it's about revealing something deeper. It turns a picture of an animal into a portrait of life. Because in the end, color shows us the world, but black and white shows us its soul. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my channel by buying me a cup of coffee, link in the description down below.